So, Adam, this is very much a before and after for Syracuse. It can be divided right there when Steve Angeli popped his Achilles against Clemson, including that win at Clemson, because when Angeli was hurt, Syracuse already had a multiple score lead and did go on to win that game. The Orange 3-1, only loss was to Tennessee in a game where Tennessee jumped out early, and then Syracuse came back and made it like a 10-ish point game. So competitive, but Tennessee controlled the game, but competitive. But 3-1 with just that loss, and they were averaging 38 points a game. Since his injury, 0-4, averaging 12.5 points per game, and they've been beaten by a margin of defeat on average of 22.5 points per contest. Now, they have played good teams. They've played some of the better teams, or teams that are in the upper half of the ACC. Duke, SMU, Virginia, and Georgia Tech. Virginia may not be right, but Georgia Tech, SMU, and Duke certainly are. I don't think Virginia's right. Who's the other one, Adam? Do you have it in front of you? Pittsburgh, excuse me. So Pitt's playing much better since they made a quarterback change, was the point of that. So they have played teams that are in the upper portion of the ACC for sure. But, I mean, obviously, in particular, the points per game, a dramatic difference from 38 to 12.5. Now, I do think their quarterback, Ricky Collins, an LSU transfer, Melkart will tell us in a little bit about kind of his running ability, and he is good in the run game. He's good in that RPO game. But he has not had the level of success in the pass game. You know, he has more interceptions than touchdowns. And I think Syracuse is still in the process, although I do think they're getting closer because he's gotten better, as you would expect. He's gotten better as time has gone on and the more reps he's received. I think they're still in the process of kind of adjusting how they play because it's a different type of quarterback. Angeli he could run a little, but he was in the pocket, distributing the ball, throwing it all over the place. And that's who Syracuse was last year, too. Remember, they led the nation in passing last year with Kyle McCord, the Ohio State transfer, as their QB. So they've had to change who they are a little bit, and there have been growing pains with that, which is not unusual. They've struggled with turnovers. They've had 16 of them on the season. They throw it more than any team in the ACC, so I think they're still adjusting, but they're still throwing it a ton. They have 315 pass attempts, which is the most in the conference. But it is a team that very clearly took a major hit when its starting quarterback went out, as a lot of teams would. Their defense statistically has not been very good. They're giving up the most yards in the league. They give up the second most amount of points in the league, the second most amount of rushing yards in the league, and out of 17 teams, they're 14th in the amount of passing yards they give up. So they've had a tough time defensively. And this is not apples to apples, and I don't mean it in a negative way towards the teams of this era, but I do think they're kind of like a Larry Fedora, like the type of Tar Heel team in the way they want to play. They move really fast offensively, and as we saw when Coach Fedora was here, sometimes that does hurt your defense. They're on the field a lot, etc., all the things that we know. So, Adam, I think this is a winnable game for Carolina. The Tar Heels have not earned the right to think any game is 100% winnable or that they should be a favorite. And in fact, don't bet on it, although soon you can, apparently, in college athletics. But I think Syracuse is still favored in this game by a little bit. But I think this is a game Carolina absolutely can win. Now, the Tar Heels have to be better offensively. They have moved the ball better here these last couple of weeks, but they have to make the positive movement pay off with points. Adam, it's interesting, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but let's say Carolina had 12 possessions against Virginia. Something like 8 of them were 3-and-outs or a turnover, I think. So the point of that is, like, when you get a drive, like, the drives aren't coming all the time for the Tar Heels. So when they do come, when you get the drive, you've got to make it pay off. You have to score when you get into the scoring area, and that's been a big problem for the Tar Heels offensively. They are next to last in the league in red zone efficiency on offense. This is a wild. These red zone numbers are crazy to me. First of all, defensively, Carolina's really good in the red zone so far this year. They're second in the league, tied for 5th in the nation in red zone defense. But Adam, on offense, 16th in the ACC. But here's the crazy part about it. They've only been in the red zone 21 times, first of all. They've scored on 16 of them. The 5 times they haven't, every one of them's been a turnover. There hadn't been a missed field goal. There hasn't been you got stopped on 4th down going for it. There hadn't been into the game and you're kneeing it out to take the win, whatever. Every time they've been in the red zone and not scored, it's been a turnover. 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles. You can't, this team in particular, most teams can't handle that, but this team in particular, if they get in the red zone, they need to score.
And just to put that in some context, the 3 other lowest teams in the ACC in red zone offense have 6 turnovers combined in the red zone. So it's not a real mystery as to why those numbers are low. That is the answer.
Yeah.
The turnovers are much too high. This seems like it should be a classic low-scoring game, so it'll probably be 41-38.
Right.
But on paper, it looks like a 13-10. Someone blocks a punt or something, and that is the difference.
I don't. Carolina's offense hasn't earned the right to think that they're going to go out there and put up a lot of points, right?
No.
But Syracuse has given up 31 points per game and 436 yards per game on average. Like, this defense statistically has not been very good. So it feels like a time Carolina could move the ball on offense.
Well, and Syracuse has been very bad against the run. So you might not even have to put the ball in the air. You might be able to just control the game. The best case scenario for the Tar Heels is they throw about 3 passes.
Yeah.
Because
Ben Hall and Davion Goss and Juju and Jalen McGill, you're rotating those guys in, and all of them are having success.
They carry it 40 times for 260 yards.
Yeah.
And Syracuse never gets the ball because the Tar Heels just grind it out. I mean, the numbers suggest that is a way Carolina could have success offensively in this game.
Tar Heels kind of sneakily, last 2 games are getting better in some things offensively. They're controlling the ball more. They're running better than they were early in the year against power conference competition. And again, I understand how it's looked. I've seen it too. But I do think there are some signs there that this offense is not going to be 2023 Tar Heels ever. But I do think there's some signs there that it's figuring things out a little bit on how this group can be most successful. And if you hadn't fumbled on the goal line twice, and you hadn't had a poor decision on a throw into a tight window that got tipped and intercepted, and you make a field goal, and I know these are all ifs, but I do feel the numbers I think you'd feel a little bit better had those turnovers not occurred. So that to me, and I know it's football 101, but that's it. You can't turn it over there. If you get a field goal attempt, you need to make it. And Reese Verhoff's been good. I mean, his 2 misses this year have been 50+. But this team can't do all the work and not get paid off with points because they've shown that they can't consistently get down there they're not getting to the red zone 3 out of every 4 possessions. So when they get down there, it has to happen.
You know the only team that's been in the red zone less than Carolina? I know you do know, probably.
I'm trying to think if I do know. Is it Stanford?
Clemson. It's been a struggle.
Carolina saw the absolute best version of Clemson in that first half. And Carolina played very poorly. They aided to that. But I rewatched a fair amount of that Clemson-Syracuse game just in getting ready for Syracuse. I mean, it is surprising how inefficient Clemson has been, yes.
Well, and in the same way that I think people kind of have a picture in their minds of a Clemson that maybe is not actually this real Clemson, I think we've reached the point in the season where people formed an opinion about the Tar Heels right around that Clemson game and have not really paid attention. And you could tell by how surprised people were. Like, several people were like, Carolina played Virginia really close. Yeah, well,
nobody saw the Cal game. It's part of the problem.
Right.
I mean, but it's part of this discussion. That game was at 10:30 Eastern time. But that's when you started to see the Tar Heels being a more competent football team.
Which we fully understand has coincided with some teams that possibly are not as competent, which is part of it.
UCF is the same as Cal is, and Virginia's number 15 in the country. Although I don't think they're like elite. But I understand your point. Carolina's not playing the highest level talent and is not going to this year. We knew the schedule wasn't very good. But there are things this team is doing better. There is no doubt. They just got to win some games. It's just you got to finish the race at this point.
You have a chance to make a little push here with Syracuse and Stanford, to put yourself in position to then show how much better you either are or aren't there at the end of the year.
So 7:30, we'll be on the air at 6:30. Adam, can I just tell you really quickly what happened the last time these two teams played? And then I'm going to tell you, if I can find it fast enough, what happened the last time these two teams played in Syracuse.
Sure.
All right, let's start with what happened the last time these two teams played. Adam, I honestly think it may have been, and there were bigger wins, like more impressive wins. I think this may have been the best performance of the Mac Brown 2.0 era. You ready for this, Adam? Carolina won 40-7 on October 7th, 2023. Adam. Carolina had 644 yards of offense. That's a lot of yards. And especially in the prism of the struggles that Carolina's had this year. Syracuse had 221. So it wasn't just the offense. Drake May, 442 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 55 yards rushing, and a touchdown. Nate McCollum, 135 yards receiving. Paysor, 100 yards receiving. Carolina led 27-0 at halftime. That's a pretty good performance.
I think Glory Days probably started playing as Jones was reading those numbers. That sounds like a lot of yards.
Well, that was in that first half of 2023 when Carolina was really, really good. Tez Walker, that's the first game Tez Walker played. He didn't really do anything in that game because, remember, he didn't know he was going to be eligible until, like, Wednesday or something. But then the next week was the Miami game where Tez Walker went crazy. And, I mean, that season, Tar Heels had some very frustrating defeats down the stretch, for sure. Now, I'm going to try and find this really quickly, Adam, because the last time the Tar Heels were in the Dome was 2018. It was Larry Fedora's final year as the head coach of the Tar Heels, and it was one of the more disappointing losses I can ever remember. Syracuse, Carolina was up multiple scores in the fourth quarter. Syracuse hit a 42-yard pass with 99 seconds left to tie the game. Carolina lost in double overtime, 40-37. This was also the game where the Tar Heels went for it on a fourth down. If they had gotten it, they would have won. And Carl Tucker, and we like Carl Tucker, was wide open and received the pass and dropped it. And that opened the door for Syracuse to then hit a 50-yard pass to tie the game and eventually win it in double overtime. Also, if I remember correctly, they had to kick a field goal. There was maybe a field goal near the end of the game that was important for somebody. Can't remember. But it was one of the more – that game summed up that season for Coach Fedora, where it was just nothing – no matter what the Tar Heels did, it just couldn't go right in the end.
Nathan Elliott, 34 for 52 for 321 yards.
52 passes.
And 2 touchdowns. Daz Newsome, 75-yard punt return touchdown.
Remember those guys, Adam?
Yeah.
Remember those guys? There were 180 plays run in the game. 106 of them were passes. How long did that game take? 5 hours? I mean, I'm serious. That had to be a 4-hour game. Double overtime with 180 passes thrown? So, different day today, for sure. Or coming up on, well, yes, tonight. Game tonight.
Amazingly.
Or Friday night, because this is coming out on Thursday.
Kickoff was 12:20, and the end of game was 3:25. It was a 3-hour and 5-minute game.
12:20? What a weird start time.
Syracuse was good that year.
They were good that year.
Tommy DeVito comes off the bench.
Yep, they were good that year. Tar Heels have won the last 2 in this series, though. There was the COVID game in Kenan Stadium to start the 2020 season, and then that game from 2023 that we discussed. This is not a series that's been played very often. It's just the 8th all-time meeting. Carolina's won 4. Syracuse has won 3. And honestly, the road teams had a fair amount of success. Carolina's 2-1 in Syracuse. Syracuse 2-2 here in Chapel Hill, but at one point it was 2-0. So we'll see.
Carolina hasn't played football in the not anymore Carrier Dome as much as I feel like they have.
No, just 3 games.
Because they've played so many basketball games there.
They have played a lot of basketball games there. A lot. They played in the Dome in the Hurricane Fran game. And then in 2018, and then there was one other time that they played there for football.
2002.
2002, and they won that game. That was Dan Orner kicking all the 50-yard field goals.
30-22.
Yeah. Okay. Adam, anything else on Carolina and Syracuse?
No.